open the meeting. This is Wednesday, December 13th, 2023, a regularly scheduled meeting for the Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust. We will call the meeting to order by roll. We have a quorum, so we will start with Rob Jeffers.
Rob Jeffers here.
Paul Grady.
Paul Grady here.
Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson here.
And Steve Gomer present as well. Let's launch into the meeting. Do we have anybody? Hello, Cassandra, by the way. Do we have anybody in the queue that wishes to make public comment?
You do not.
Okay. Financial update. Rob Jeffers, I'm going to turn this over to you because this is, if you would, could you, a financial update is shorthand that we all understand, but for anybody that ever wants to review this, just go back and refine what it is you're updating us on.
Yep. So this one was about, we had a discussion last meeting concerning an investment policy statement for our the assets that we hold with our investment manager. So myself and David met, to kind of talk in broad terms, and then I created a draft which has been distributed by Cassandra to the meeting, which I'm sorry, I should have already opened, but I am opening now and I'll share it with you. And then briefly go over it. Bear with me one second. So what you notice is this is pretty, long and detailed, and it's basically what we use here at, my trust company when we're setting up, investment policy statements for a trust. So give me just one more second. Documents, AHT, IPS. There we go. Share. So everybody should be able to see that. Instead of going through everything line by line, because I'm sure everybody read it in the past day or two, the general concept here is that this money is meant to be used. So we have a relatively short horizon, investment horizon. What we are suggesting is a 70-30 split with 70% in low risk liquid investments and only up to 30% in equities. Let me just take a step back. The idea here would be for us to review this draft. If we agree with the general concepts of it, the next step would be to have a meeting with the investment managers and go over it with them and get agreement and have them implement it. That would be a public meeting, that meeting with the investment managers. So this is just a draft, and to get people's feedback, we can make any changes to it. But it wouldn't finalize it until obviously we speak to the investment manager. So sorry, should have started with that. But yeah, as you can see, we have this as a 5-year time horizon. We would expect that, we're going to have a decent amount of distributions, and our risk tolerance is extremely low because our goal here isn't to be titans of industry and, trade this. It's more about, we've been given money, we want to get a decent return on it while it's sitting there. But it needs to be available and liquid for any of the projects that might come up. There's a little section about purpose. We have a little organizational, overview, kind of what, and then this is more for the investment manager to understand who we are and what we're trying to do. We have, who we are. I did a very short history. We've actually been around since 2008. But if there's anything else that people wanted added in the history, I'm happy to put there. But really, this goes across our objectives. The one thing I do have on here that I'll pause and see if there's any feedback is, do we want to have a policy of a minimum distribution amount? Yeah, I don't know if we need to have that. Once you put something in a policy, you got to kind of have to do it. So I can take this out, but just wanted to see if anybody had any comments on that. And I'll pause because I know I've said a lot already.
Well, first of all, thank you. As for me, and I think for all of us, thank you for putting in the work. to your specific question,
Mm.
with respect to the policy for distribution, I'm not sure that we actually need one for a required distribution. And in fact, if we retain a high level, and 70% would be a high level of liquidity, then accessing assets for distribution as is needed it seems to me it would be fairly simple,
Yep.
right? So I don't know that we need to identify that such that we're locked into a known distribution. There is a piece in here, and it's something we should talk about, in which I wonder if we ought to be defining in the investment policy statement, keeping a small amount for immediate liquidity.
Mhm.
Think of it as a money market fund.
Mhm.
And what occurs to me, and of course we don't have the current capability of processing our own payment, and I'm not sure that we ever will. But
Mhm.
it occurs to me that if we had that, then we're never going to get ourselves into the bind in which we have to liquidate securities at an inopportune time in order to pay an invoice.
Mhm.
That makes sense?
Mhm. Okay.
So, and again, part of this is just understanding the mechanics of how the finance department would treat this. If they were to treat this such that they were tapping our trust funds on a quarterly basis to compensate funds that they've extended on our behalf, then maybe we think about it somewhat differently. Like I said, it's mechanical. It doesn't, I think, change the approach that you've outlined here for strategy.
I mean, something we could do is if I'm showing the asset allocation is we could easily just say, we'd like to have a minimum cash balance of X%, and maybe have that be 5 or 10%. That their money markets are very good. We unlike some other firms and brokerage accounts that give you like 2 basis points on your cash, they are giving us 5% on our cash. So it's like it's not like it's not uninvested by being in cash. So 5% returns, or at least right now at this point, I think pretty good. So I mean, I'd be happy with saying, hey, have a minimum of 10% cash in the portfolio, so that we do always have that cash on hand if we need something immediately.
What brings it to mind, Rob, is some conversations that I've had with Rob and Ted,
Mm-hmm.
specifically about Elm Street. And there's been payment delays, which I think are much more from built on a management structure. In other words, how town hall operates.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I would hate for there to be further delays simply because we don't carry a cash balance within the trust.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's a good point. I'll throw it out there and see if people agree. What I could do is update this to say, we'll maintain a minimum cash balance of 10% or approximately 10% to give them some wiggle room. And I would just alter this page that you see in front of you to reflect that.
I'd look at it as opposed to a percentage, and this is something for discussion within the trust. I'd look at it and think of it as a dollar amount,
Mm-hmm.
because we're really thinking about this at least I'm thinking about this specifically as a liquidity vehicle for distribution. And so from that perspective, I'm 50, 75,000, which should be
Okay.
the 10% range.
Yeah.
Because, well, frankly, I think we'll be able to get away with it. Currently, we don't have a preponderance of payables, but we will once we finish with. Well, I shouldn't say that. Once we finally go into the last phase of finishing off Elm Street, there should be a relatively sizable disbursement. Rob can fill us in on what that's expected to be for appliances and cabinetry. And but that's anyway. I don't want to beat it to death. This is, I think, it's been a worthwhile conversation in examining this. Other comments from other members?
Seems very thorough to me.
Okay. Any
Dave,
suggestions? Go ahead.
Dave, first of all, apologize. I've been having trouble connecting this morning. I started at 20 of 8 and then just got in. So I didn't hear the beginning of this and all, but am I correct in presuming that this is going, when you started talking about us, that the trust having a, like a, for lack of a silly word, but rainy day fund, so we can pay for things as they come along and not have to go through the town, that we have somehow have a mechanism to pay things out of petty cash or something to keep the project moving?
It's sort of, within the investment policy statement, it would be guidance for the investment manager to retain some amount of immediate liquidity. So think about it as a balance in a savings account or even a checking account. The mechanical piece of that, Rob, has yet to be clarified. In other words, we don't know. I had a quick conversation with Karis North about this last night. We don't know yet whether or not we could, within the context of the Affordable Housing Trust governing law, actually manage our own expense account, right? That may, no matter what, that may be guided under municipal law. And so as a result, we still wouldn't have the capability of writing a check for payment directly. We would still have to go through the town. That's the part that still needs to be clarified. Nonetheless, our investment policy statement should indicate whether or not we want to keep cash available so that those payments can be made, as opposed to having to sell otherwise beneficial investments in order to make those payments.
Did you find out anything more about the ability of issuing a purchase order based on a town credit card for a project that's been approved?
I think I'm going to turn that question over to at a different point to Cassandra and Ted, but I will come back to it. Okay, I just want to at the moment let's stay on the subject of the proposed investment policy statement.
I just added in, the trust would like to maintain a cash balance of at least 50 to 75,000 for immediate accessibility.
Yeah.
I mean, in thinking of this, all the investment policy statement, all it's doing is directing our investment managers on how we would like them to manage our money. We will then, as you see, and at the end, we'll need to review this once a year and make sure that they're actually doing what we've told them to do. And so that's as trustees, that's going to be our responsibility. That, hey, if they're 80% in equity and we told them that we wanted to be in about 30, we're probably going to be upset and fire them. If they're at 32, we're probably going to be absolutely fine because we know things move around. So it's just kind of setting that up so that they have a clear written instruction of what we want, and they know our expectations and our needs of, this is not meant to be a risky portfolio. This is meant for you'll see throughout this, it's capital preservation. It's like we don't want to be losing money. But we also, it's like, hey, if you can get 5% on cash, we should grow, stuff at 5%. We have a decent amount of money. That's like $75,000 a year in interest on our current balance. Well, that's great. We should do that so that we can, continue to fund projects, but we don't want to take a lot of risk in that. I did also mention in here that our preference, and this was, based on the discussion with David as well, is like our preference is on ETFs. That we would, we're not looking to be stock pickers. I didn't exclude us from doing that. It's just in general, if you say you can't do something, that means you have to monitor it constantly. And if they do it, then you have to fire them. So it's like, there might be a reason why they hold something And we will still have that ability on an annual basis to review and talk with them about it. But, this is kind of directing them. In general, use ETFs, AAA or US Treasuries for the fixed income. Also, it says in here, unambiguously, we do not invest in private equity or anything with low liquidity. Everything needs to be, extremely liquid, because if we need to liquidate the entire trust because, an opportunities come up, that has to be, a possibility. So I think if people obviously, if you have any questions or any other comments, we can bring them up. If not, I don't know if we have to vote, but I think we would want to say, yep, this is good to go to, for me and David to go talk to the investment manager, and maybe a vote for that would be useful.
I've got, Rob, if you're okay with it,
Mm-hmm.
I've got a suggestion. There are a couple of things I'd love to talk with you about specifically.
Sure.
Nothing that changes the direction of what you're doing.
Progress.
And it's more to get clarity. Don't want to. My proposal to all of you is that you take a moment, read this again, forward any comments that you have through Cassandra. All right, and Rob, recirculate the draft. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
to the extent that I can gather each of you for a very brief meeting next week, all right, because I got to think about enough posting time. Quite literally, I'm talking about 5 minutes to meet and vote on this, because I would like for David and Rob to be able to bring this to the investment managers before year end.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But I mean, as for me, I have read through this. I had some thoughts on it. I haven't had a moment to breathe, Rob, and call you on it. So
Sure, no problem.
that's that's my suggestion to all of you. How do you feel about that collectively? Cindy's okay with it.
Sounds good.
Oh, Paul, are you okay with that approach?
I'm fine with that, Steve.
Okay, Ted.
Yeah. Yep. Great.
And Rob, I'm sorry, Rob Henry.
Yeah, yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Cool.
All right, so please, once again, take today, maybe tomorrow, to read through it and forward any comments or no comments to Cassandra so she can assemble them. And Cassandra, if we can, is there a particular day that's good for you guys next week? And by the way, as far as I'm concerned, so long as it fits within, Cassandra, for something like this, do we actually need a vote? Do we actually need a remote meeting, or can we actually get together in person simply for the purpose of vote and transmitting the result of that vote?
Whereas you would only be meeting for the purpose of the vote, I would imagine that you would not be required to have a recording of such meeting. So then it would just boil down to a location for you to meet.
Okay.
And obviously people's
Yeah,
availability as well.
Once again, what's most convenient for you folks? I have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday available, at least nominally. And if we're meeting in person, then the hour of that meeting can be fairly flexible, but except for the middle of the day, because some of us still have to work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm in Cohasset on Mondays and Fridays. I have to go into the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Monday would probably work, do it first thing in the morning. Tuesday and Wednesday would not work for me.
Ted,
Monday,
For me,
Monday's good for me.
Monday, okay, so Cindy?
Monday's good for me.
And Paul Grady, we've got 4 people committed. If by chance you can't make it, then you're relieved. But if you can make it, so much the better. Monday
If it's a
morning.
Monday morning, I could probably make it. I'm better off in the evenings because of my line of work. But if there's a time, I could probably make it. Tuesday nights are out because that's usually select board. But
Yeah.
anything else, I could probably try to squeeze.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it makes it easier on you, I think this is an early morning crew generally. And if we put down Monday morning at 7:30 or 8, can everybody make that? I know, Ted, you
I should be able to make that.
Yeah.
And where are we meeting? Over at,
well, that's the next question. It's got to be a public area, typically a, public meaning town-owned. Cassandra, is there any chance that we could get a meeting room at like the senior center? Monday morning, 8 a.m.
I'm not sure what time they open. I could certainly inquire, but I do know that they have a lot of programming. If the trust is amendable, we do have a room here at Town Hall. It's nothing fancy. There's a lot of wires, but if you wanted to meet, Town Hall does open at 8. So if you wanted to say
Yeah.
8:15
Why don't we
on
do
Monday
that?
morning.
Yeah, look, preferences for the senior center just because, but the town hall is a great backup. We're good with that.
Okay, I'll do some research and figure out what's available and what time things are available. And then once I determine that, I will circulate that information to the trust.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Steve,
And who's bringing the donuts?
Yes,
I'll bring the donuts.
okay.
I'll get some coffee.
Bob Henry's got a question for
yeah,
you.
I just saying, make it easy, since it's gonna be a short meeting and town hall does open 8 o'clock, why don't we just have Cassandra check, make sure we can come at 8 o'clock on Monday morning at town hall.
Well, that's the point. She's checking.
I thought you were making this, you said a backup, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's available, I'd rather get together at the senior
Right.
center just because it's comfortable. You're in and out relatively quickly, and it's centrally located. Not to say the town hall isn't, but just let's go with that. If it's not available, we'll do town hall, and in any case, you'll know by way of the notification on the posting.
Certainly don't want to have another town hall conversation.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. So thank you. We can move along from this topic now.
Yes.
Great. So next we have Paul Kearse with us, who is chairman of the Affordable Housing Steering Committee, and he's going to give us an update on their activities. Paul, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, everyone. Well, a couple of things. We have been meeting monthly this month, rather than having a committee meeting. We had a lot of activities that we were in support of. Habitat for Humanity had a couple of events that our board members, we all kind of took turns in attending those events to help promote the 808 Jerusalem Road property. So that's moving right along. During the Christmas stroll, there is a applicant who I believe might be first in line to be one of the residents of 808 Jerusalem. She was there with her son. So it was great to actually meet someone who would hopefully be in the home. So they're moving right along with it. They're going to be going in front of the planning board, I think, in a couple of months. They had some decisions to make on the ledge that's there. So they originally planned a full basement, and then they had to scale it back. So once they redo their plans and they got to go back in front of planning, they'll be well on their way. In addition to that, what we've been working on was really a couple of the smaller projects, or the known projects that we have, which is down on South Main Street. The garage that burnt down is now a 3 apartments on the second floor, retail on the first floor. One of them was going to be deeded affordable. We have not heard from him as far as deeding that property for affordable housing yet. And I know he was going to be coming in front of the trust for some technical assistance on setting that up. According to Taffy, who is at the 60 Elm Street, the state did make some changes theoretically to make it easier to help get residents in these units. So they did make a few changes that hopefully will help all of those who start to to do the affordable housing, once they get to that state portal to be able to get people in. So there were some changes on the state level to make it a little easier. I'm not sure. When it was complex and hard, I don't know what the definition easy is from the state, but that's that's where that is. The other properties that we're been sitting on really is 1 Pleasant Street. Obviously, that was going to be hopefully acquired by the town, but since that did not happen, we have not heard back from the property owner as to where he's going to advance the property. And so until we hear from the property owner, we're not sure where that stands. We know it's going to be deeded for the 14 apartments, but we don't know when they'll come online. And what the first floor is going to look like, if he goes back to his original plans with a restaurant or not. So that's still up in the air. As far as new projects go, we really haven't had any that we're aware of. There was a preliminary group that came in front of us for 8 units on Hull Street, where there's an existing home that has acreage that they could put up 8 units, whether they be apartments or condos, and wanted to get our opinion as to where we thought would be in the best interest of housing. Obviously, apartments work best for us as opposed to condos. The property where on South Main Street in the Village, where the gas station is, the Hodge Garage, we haven't heard who the new property owners are there, and what the process is for going back in front of the planning board, if that's what they're going to do, or they accept the plans that were already approved for the property. So we haven't heard from the property owners on that either. The select board meeting last night, the planning board presented their draft, I guess, for compliance to the housing density that the T and the state has pushed upon all the towns. So their presentation was pretty good. They looked at 3 options where 100% of the density would be on North 3A by the T station itself. Option 2 would be a portion of North Cohasset and then a portion of South Cohasset on 3A down the other end, where the CVS and Shaw's in that area down there. And then the third option would be to include a section of Beechwood, which was not a preferred option, to kind of dilute the requirements. So their plan meets the requirements. It's on the low end of meeting it with a cushion of a percentage or 2 to get over that threshold. Other areas that we're aware of, they did not consider. So I was going to talk to them about other areas in town that they could consider for that high density. I don't know if they, I don't know that they included the property where the preserve is, which is former Avalon. I believe that property still has the ability to build 100 units. So I would have to confirm that. I don't think they included that in their zone calculations, because I think existing properties may not be counted in that new zone. Also, there was a property at the end of North Main Street that came to us about 1.5 years ago for like 22 units. He thought he could be included in that zoning, but we didn't have any zoning laws that would accept what he wanted to do at the time. So I don't know if he's just waiting for zoning laws to be changed and then coming back, because that's directly across the street from the station. And then there are some areas of land that we'd like to find out from the building department if the lots are buildable, and then maybe get together with someone from the trust to see what the potential of those properties are. One example is the town purchased the Sestito landscaping facility on the corner of Pond and 3A. Their intent there was to build a first responder station, if you will. But now that they're purchased King Street instead, we're not sure what the town is going to do with that property. If my memory serves me correctly, it's either 5 or 7 acres, which either 3 or 4 of it is wetlands and the rest of it is buildable. So there is an opportunity to take a look at that property. It's already in the possession of the town. It's a matter of transferring it to the trust, I would think, to find out what their desire is for that particular property. Other than that, I'm anxious to hear what comes up next on your agenda.
Questions? Well, first, actually, Rob Henry, hold on just a second, because some time ago, Paul Grady raised his hand, and I want to recognize it first.
Oh, no, that was a lot of information to digest. Just going back. I believe I will step back on the Sestito property. I think that's, Paul, that might be the opposite of what you heard. I think it's the smaller amount that is buildable, and that's where they ran into difficulty. Is the larger amount of that land is primarily wetlands, I believe.
Yeah, so I think it's still 2 acres that's buildable though. So,
Yeah, there's this smaller amount. I'm just transposing. I thought you said it was the larger amount that was buildable, and I was just going to say I don't believe that's the case. The smaller amount.
Yeah, Paul Grady, when the town acquired that land, I remember sitting on the board at that point, and the proposal from the town generally was, well, we can, there is wetlands there, and we can create them elsewhere to make more buildable land. And at the time, that sounded like a good idea, but I figured it would probably get some pushback from Concom. I think just in quiet conversation, that's probably what happened. And instead of pursuing that road for public safety, because you need more than 2 acres for both fire and police response.
Yeah.
Right? They looked at it and said, too much work. So.
And I got one more on One Pleasant for you, just so that I could throw out at you.
Go ahead, and then after
One
that,
Pleasant.
go ahead.
No, then
Yeah, after you.
no. If I'm interrupting someone, let him go.
No, I'm just letting Rob know he's next after you.
All right. One Pleasant, from what I understand with that, is the builder. We still have the 4 affordable that are deeded affordable, and I think that's pretty much all we're going to get out of it now. We lost the town hall technically, or that building, by 10 votes, as we all know. So my understanding is if things go forward, he is going to try to go market without the rentals, and that came up in the meeting. So I think we might be writing those off due to it not passing in the town. But we still have the 4 affordable.
Well,
the
other 10 would still count against the affordable inventory, even though they wouldn't be held for.
Yes, they would.
Right.
We just don't have the option for either local preference or workforce or whatever with them.
Right.
No, we lost that. But he also, I don't know if he's going to try to go condo. I don't know. You hear a number of things being thrown around, but that's on the street.
Okay. By the way, thank you for the update, Paul Kearse. Rob Henry.
This is something we haven't talked about for a while, but what's the status of for Cohasset Hospitality on the harbor? They're supposed to provide a couple of units in another location.
That's already completed.
They did 4 units.
Yeah, it's 4 units on Elm Street. That was completed probably, I don't know, 6 months ago or more. Paul, do you know? Paul Kearse, do you know? Remember?
Yeah, so the 4 units are on Cushing Street.
Cushing.
Yep, and those were done about a year ago, and they're fully rented.
Well, I'm not too far behind then, am I? I thought that I mean, I knew they were gonna do that, but I didn't know they were completed.
They were required to give us 3 and they actually came up with 4, so we
Yeah.
benefit.
Okay, great.
And then just to kind of add, I talked to Habitat for Humanity, you know, because we're going to be going into the building phase and you know, the kind of the fundraising phase and getting the community involved. I suspect around the springtime. They had never gone in front of CPC to seek any funding. They've only come to the trust for the 75,000 commitment. Talked to them about that, and they seem to want to hold off on that for the moment to see obviously what they can fundraise from the public, but they have a strong desire to build more smaller units like this in town and may want to reserve going to the CPC to help them with those aspects, is what they conveyed to us. So if there are smaller properties, which I believe there are, in which there would be, you know, an acre or less than an acre that's buildable, they're very open to doing another unit or two. So
Okay, Cindy Matheson?
Would that be, for example, an option for that former Sestito landscape on 3A? If it's only 2 acres, could they put a series of smaller units? Would that be a possibility?
it is. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few more areas around town. There's another spot where it's actually in our neighborhood, where there's a dead end street that goes into town property, which is another 5 to 7 acres, which some of it is wetlands, but I believe maybe 2 or 3 of those as well can be built on. It's just a matter of getting with John Halloran to find out if those are buildable.
And Steve, I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Going back to 146 South Main Street, that has the 3 units and one of them would be deeded affordable. I think we sent or forward up to $15,000 to the owner of that property to help him figure out how to do the lottery, et cetera, et cetera. So has he made good on that? What is his issue still with moving that property forward for affordable? Where's his questions?
Well, first of all, yes, we committed $15,000 in 3 different increments based upon hurdles for each increment. Cassandra, you may be able to put your hands on that document faster than I can. And I believe we've already distributed 10,000 to him.
You have not.
We have not distributed 10,000. Then we have distributed 5. I know that.
You
Yeah.
have not. You have not distributed any money to him because he has not met any of those markers.
Well, my apologies. I thought we had already made one of those distributions for certain. I thought we'd made 2. If you wouldn't mind, Cassandra, would you, when you have a moment, because I know you've got all kinds of free time, recirculate the letter of agreement with him.
Yes, so just for some background information, I have reached out to him a few times to get a status report on where he's at, to recommend organizations for him to work with in terms of doing the lottery for those units. I have not heard back from him. So I'm not sure what the status is. As far as I'm aware, he has not started that process. I do know that process does take some time for those organizations to begin. Last I had heard, it's upwards of 6 months to begin a lottery. So I can check in with him again, but I have not been successful in speaking with him.
All right. Well, as you know, as I said, if you don't mind recirculating the document just so everybody's refreshed on it. But it does bring up a related question. Ted, I see your hand up too. Paul Kearse, did we count that, or do we count that in the SHI?
Yeah, we're good on it. I think we're at 10.2, 10.3%.
What is that unit? Are those units counted in there? Or is that unit that he has promised counted?
No.
Thank
No,
you.
the only units that counted, the last units that actually counted were the CJC properties that got us over the hump. I believe the 4 units on Cushing would be added in, but I don't think they made it under the census number. Cassandra, do you know?
Yes, so those units do count towards our SHI, as do the ones at 390. 147 South Main cannot go onto the SHI until everything is completed with the lottery and everything like that.
Okay. Ted Carr.
Yep, we, just before we get too far away from Habitat for Humanity, I just wanted to mention one item with those guys. So they have an annual fundraising event. It's in May, I believe. And they approached me to consider being the chair of the fundraising gala. The money does go to benefit the 808 project. I've been traveling quite a bit for my work, mostly out of the country, so I wasn't able to do it. I just wanted to mention it here. If anybody has any interest in getting on the committee to help them with their fundraising, they are looking for someone to do that.
Thanks, Ted. The one thing I would ask is that if you're considering it, just run it by Karis to make sure there's no conflict.
Yeah, I had originally checked with the lawyer of the day at the state ethics, and they said it would be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
My concern with the conflict is if we as a trust are helping to fund projects that South Shore Habitat has, that might be the appearance of a conflict.
Yep.
Okay. No, I appreciate it because I'd like to see them get as much assistance as they can. Which reminds me, by the way, I know I don't want to get too far off topic, but I would bring this up. If any of you have made contributions to South Shore Habitat for Humanity, check with your employer. I was surprised to find out that by some funding that I had given to them in their last fundraiser in May, Morgan Stanley's foundation was coming in to match it so long as I produced the receipt. So if likewise, if your employers do matching contributions, now's the time to ask. So, all right. Thank you, Paul Kears, for the update from the steering committee. Are you finished?
I am. I just, I'll listen into your next subject.
Okay, no, I just didn't want to leave you too early. If we're done here with the steering committee update, we'll move on to updates on 43 Elm. And that for that, we've got both Rob and Ted to give us the latest.
Go ahead, Rob, please. Yeah.
We started doing the work there with this Jones Painting Home Improvement Company. But we've, and I think it might be a good thing that he has been a little unreasonable about how he gets paid, when he gets paid, and all that, because I think that's something we need in this discussion of having we call it check account or whatever. But he has dropped off the job because he is not going. He doesn't. He claims he doesn't have the funds. He doesn't have a credit card limit high enough to buy the high ticket items, the cabinets, carpet, and some of these things that were in the quote of $44,000. And I've talked to Cassandra, then I asked Ted to get into it. Ted and I haven't talked in the last couple of weeks, but to try to have some arrangement where we can purchase. And we were led to believe that the town had a credit card or some kind of credit arrangement with Lowe's and these kind of things where we have an approved construction project that indeed we could order it for the town and it wouldn't have to be bought by the contractor. So he's done. I haven't gone down to inspect it, but he's done some. And then we did get an invoice. Cassandra, we did, and now he's claiming we didn't pay the whole thing.
Yeah, I did see Ted's email this morning. I have not had a chance to speak with accounting as of yet. I did submit the invoice for the full amount that he had requested.
Yeah.
So I just have to follow up with accounting
It doesn't make
on
any
what the
sense
check
why
was issued for.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense why the town wouldn't pay his invoice, whether it's materials or labor.
I completely agree.
I mean, this further exasperates the whole darn problem of this project and going forward. Where, I mean, we can make an argument that, I mean, I try to tell him that if he did charge things to his credit card, I mean, he does have a company credit card, and if he did charge things, you know, he wouldn't have to pay for it for 30 days, and by that time the town would, you know, reimburse him so he could pay off his credit card bill. But he's been a little, you know, feisty on this whole thing, frankly. And so Ted, what else can you add
So-
to that?
I can give a little further update on a couple of those items. So yes, he's invoiced the town, three invoices. Cassandra's been wonderful. He has been paid in full on two of them. And then this item we're talking about now, we'll get to the bottom of that, but that's the one he hadn't been paid. It's the period. So the timing is a little challenging, I think, for him. So first invoice paid very promptly. Second invoice took a few weeks. Third invoice got half. So a little frustrating, but I have talked him off the ledge. I can also report on the work that he has done, and I'm glad to organize a tour if anybody would like to go and see it. So everything has been completely cleaned, painted, sanded, everything. So all of the walls, everything fixed, rails. We have new keys. I'll get to Cassandra and Rob. The locks were unsuitable, so I have new keys, and I'll get those to you guys from him. So
This explains why I couldn't get in.
okay, yeah. So the other one, it just couldn't lock anymore. I don't know if you remember the door jamb.
Yeah.
Had a big hole in it. So anyway, that's all been fixed. There's a number of things like there's materials that need to leave the property. So I'm gonna bring my trailer over there and he'll load it up. He just goes to another project. He's not like walked away from it. He's sort of waiting for us to, you know, figure out how to, you know, do what's next. I would agree with Rob. It's not an ideal vendor. It's just hard to find people like this, but he will finish the work whenever we can figure out how to, you know, get the remaining stuff. So from my conversation with him, I also understand he turned in the bids to the town. And Cassandra, if you don't have them, one is for cabinet 3 that was through Lowe's. I think carpet was also maybe through Lowe's. So it was our hope that we could figure out how to, like Rob mentioned, procure that through the town, or and once that goes, there's some time period when it comes in, but the project's very far along, so he's done a pretty good job in there, and I welcome you to come and have a look.
Excuse me, Ted, he's not
Yeah.
put the new radiator in though, right?
He has not put the radiator covers on, no, and
No.
he has not ordered them, no.
That's a big item, so.
Yeah, that was like I forget, that was like $1,100 or something like
That
that.
was one that I was trying to say, a good example of, it wasn't a lot of money. You could have put this on a credit card, but you know, you want to be paid in advance, and you know, unfortunately the town doesn't do that, so.
Yeah. Put it on the yeah, okay. So well, anyway, in terms of what he has invoiced for, the town is actually coming through, you know, so I think this last invoice we can figure out, you know, for him or whatever. So anyway, yeah, that's sort of, you know, that's where we are. It's, you know, it's our goal to, you know, get this thing so we can move it along, get it off our list as soon as we can. But let's see, Cassandra, you got your hand up there. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, so I did just want to provide and ask a question as well,
Sure.
for the clarification for the invoices. So he has been submitting invoices weekly. The only invoice that may have taken a little bit longer, he did submit the day before Thanksgiving, and
Oh, okay, good.
accounting wasn't able to get that invoice until Monday. So that was issued accordingly. Do you know, was it his fourth invoice that there was the discrepancy on, just for when I ask accounting?
Yeah, I can get you what it is, but I believe it is the most recent invoice.
Okay.
I didn't realize there was 4. So yes, it's the most recent one, and I didn't see it, but I understand when he bills for materials and then he bills for labor. And I believe he has been fully reimbursed for the materials on this last invoice, $700, $750, something like that. And then there's like a similar number for his time. And for whatever reason, I think he was reimbursed for the materials, but not the time.
I'll have to look at the fourth invoice that he
Okay.
submitted again. I do remember that it was phrased a little peculiarly. He said that he couldn't remember exactly what it was, but he guessed that it was roughly in a range. So I'll just have to double check
Okay.
the way that he phrased it.
And if it's something, if they need a fresher invoice, I'm glad to work with them to make sure the town gets what they need.
Yeah, but this does,
Yes.
the other thing on these invoices and stuff, it doesn't provide, in my opinion, doesn't provide, give you enough detail of what he did. So
He
like,
has been submitting, for most of the invoices, he has been coupling them with receipts to show
okay. But
what
that-
he has
'cause
paid
I
for
gotta
materials.
talk with him on that. I said, you've got to provide detail. The town isn't just gonna write these checks because you submit a bill for $711, so. I mean, both Ted
Yes.
and I had to talk him up. Ted's, like you said, the ledge. I mean, he was ready to walk off, 6 weeks ago.
The other thing that I was just going to mention is in regards to the larger priced items such as cabinets, rugs, etc.
Yeah.
I have been working with Michelle Leary to see if we can get our limit higher for Lowe's in order to be able to purchase those items directly from Lowe's as kind of a purchase order deal.
What's our limit currently, Cassandra?
I'm not sure exactly what our limit with Lowe's is currently. I do know that the current estimate for the materials is significantly higher than what our limit is.
I understand the restrictions that the finance department feels like they must follow. If you want to vote, we'll vote right now, but I can assure you that for the cost of whatever these materials are, we will produce a vote pledging the proper amount from the trust to back up whatever that purchase order is. We got to get this moving. It's costing us what, $1,000+ a month to sit on this property. And once we get it complete, we're still several months away from selling it. So, to be futzing around, and I'm not angry with you. I'm just the absolute bullshit that takes place because no one recognizes that this is, the project is completely backed not by the town but by the funds in the trust. If necessary, and you can let me know this because I certainly don't want you taking flack for it. I am quite happy to represent the position of the trust to whether it's Michelle or even Chris, but we got to get moving. We're a month late just getting the appliances. There is no kitchen in a property that we own because we don't have appliances, we don't have cabinetry. So let us know what we need to do, or we can talk about it offline. But it's got to be. I mean, it's frustrating to me personally. I can't imagine that it's comfortable for everybody else in the trust as well. And just as importantly, as we often speak about the priority of affordable housing in the town of Cohasset, here's an example as to why it's not getting done. Sorry, that's as much for the recorded record as anything else.
That's okay. So I don't know that you need to take an official vote again because you've already voted to expend a certain amount of money towards the rehabilitation of the unit. So we do know obviously that the trust is designating money towards this project. We just have to work it out with Lowe's. I know that Michelle has been in contact with them a few times to try to get that limit higher. And I was planning to touch base again with her today to see if we were successful in doing that. And then we can move forward with determining the best route of cabinets, whatever.
It's going to get embarrassing for the town because at this point, I'm going to go buy them. And I'm going to present the town with my personal invoice to pay my credit card.
Yeah, this is
So
why can't we get the money? Why don't we just pay the cash for it? We don't need to put it in the credit
Take
card.
a withdrawal from the trust and go down there with an envelope full of cash. That's the level of frustration this has hit.
So I did, however, look at one item that I think Steve touched on a little bit. I thought, I'm like, hey, can I just get this stuff and get reimbursed for it? The answer is no. That is a conflict. So members of the committee cannot directly be reimbursed. It's a wonderful, you can call the lawyer of the day at the state ethics thing. They're wonderful. They'll answer your questions for you. And that I asked it because I was like, look, I'll go get the cabinets and get reimbursed for it. I didn't have a problem with that. But anyway, that was they were immediately like, boy, that's not gonna pass. So just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We've got about $1 million hanging around and we've got no way to transmit it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So,
Hey, and I gotta
actually,
step I
yeah,
gotta step away for about 2 minutes. I got somebody pounding on the door upstairs. Can I come right back?
you go ahead,
Guys, okay, thanks, guys. Be right back.
Cassandra,
Yes.
what's Michelle's extension?
It is 5114.
All right. I'll try to give her a buzz after we finish this call. I've got to go at 10 o'clock anyway. I've got another call. I think we've collectively expressed our frustration on 43 Elm Street. Thank you, Cassandra, for checking into the fourth invoice and making sure are determining whether or not it has been paid in full. If it hasn't, telling us what the status is and how we're going to deal with it. I'll report back to Cassandra about any conversation I've had with Michelle, and she can distribute it to each of you separately. With that, though, I think we've taken 43 Elm Street as far as we can go for this conversation, unless any of you have an opposite view. All right, hearing none, we'll go on to the last item on the agenda. MassDOT property on 3A. I have some additional input on this. Ted, I think, has some input on this, but more importantly, some background work was done, distributed to each of us by Cassandra. And so, Cassandra, if you don't mind, would you summarize what you've learned?
Yeah, of course. So as most of you know, that property is owned by the state. It's listed as a Mass DOT storage site. I was able to find via the Energy and Environmental Affairs state site that there has been a contamination leak onto the property, which the website was a little convoluted. It was hard to determine, but it seems like it's been cleared up, but that it is still categorized as a contaminated site. It is not part of the current proposal for the MBTA zoning overlay because the state-owned properties are not able to be included in that. So it's not going to be a part of that. And the current zoning for that does not presently allow for residential units on that site.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additionally, I'd made a call to our state senator, Patrick O'Connor, who is looking into the process by which the state can transfer property considered to be surplus by the state. I haven't heard back yet, but I wanted to make sure that we understood whatever steps that we needed to take could be taken for expressing an interest in that transfer. And Ted, do you have anything to add to this?
Only so Tanya and I have a very good friendship and relationship with Rebecca Tepper. She is the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the state. So we have not talked to her, but if we need some leverage or some help, we can use that relationship.
Okay, good. From what I understand of your work, Cassandra, at the very least, if the trust were to be able to acquire that land, at the very least, we'd be looking at the potential for rezoning, correct? As a
If
developer.
you were looking to build on it
for
residential, yes, it would need to be rezoned.
Okay, so just for the purposes of understanding within the trust, if we were to acquire the property, it's going to go in one of two directions. Either number one, we would look to sell the property simply to fund the trust, Or secondly, we'd be looking at the potential for using that property for housing development. All right, so think about it from that perspective. Paul Kears, I'm sorry, I see your hand up, Paul, and I'll come back to you here in a second. But Paul Kears, this would be something I think we'd certainly want to have an opinion from the steering committee as to what might be the best use for that. And again, open your thinking caps collectively, because if there were to emerge an enormous fight to have the property rezoned, and likewise, if it were not too extensive a cleanup for contamination, could it be used for residential property? The alternative, of course, is that it might be more expeditious and further the goals of the trust and the steering committee overall if we could acquire the property and sell it for the purposes of producing revenue for the trust, so that we could then reinvest in other properties elsewhere. Paul Kears, your hand was up.
Sure, I just I had a couple of questions more for Cassandra. You stated that the property could not be counted because it's owned by the state in the new MBTA density. So if the property went out for bid and then went into the hands of private owners, or any private
non-state
group, would it then be included in that high density plan?
I don't know that it would automatically be included because, like I said, it's not currently one of the parcels that we're looking at, but it would have more potential to be included if it was not owned by the state.
Okay, so then the follow-up question is, if it was owned by the municipal town, does that also exclude it, or is it state-only exclusion?
I'm not sure if it excludes town-owned properties. I would have to double check that. I know for sure that state cannot be. I would just have to double check with the town.
Okay, and then for the trust, one thing would consider if we have a large property available, then what everyone's thinking of right now in town is this this high density issue that's in front of us because of the state mandate. But there's also an opportunity for doing what's called 40R, which is zoning it for and capping the size of the facilities to where it would be affordable housing, but 40R restricts it to a certain size so that it would be more conducive to workforce housing.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, so
we've
think
got
nothing has to be 3 stories high with 16, 18 units in it. You could be a little more clever with 40R stuff, which the town hasn't really gotten into.
You all may recall too that we asked Karis North to do some investigating for us, and she called me last night to apologize for not being able to attend today. Apparently some other town duties have taken her away. She is preparing, has not completed, but is preparing a memo for us to review that talks about the process of distribution of declared surplus property from the state. So we've got 2 avenues that we're pursuing there. Of course, one is our own state senator, and which actually may prove to be useful in gaining some support for a potential claim. And then, of course, Karis, who would be responsible of helping us to walk through the process of applying for it. So, Paul, Paul Kears, at your next meeting, here's a subject that arises. I think any pursuit of it's going to have to be pursued in tandem with you. So,
right, yeah, there's I've already talked to some of the state nonprofits that do housing for a living, so they would be interested in. They don't like doing things after a project has already begun. They like to be at the beginning of the project.
Okay.
Financial model works best for them there. Thank you.
Hey, absolutely. All right, folks, it's now 9:53. We've completed the entirety of the agenda. We do have some administrative stuff. First of all, we have a draft meeting schedule for 2024, or do we have a draft meeting schedule, Cassandra? Is Wednesday working for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here we go. Second Wednesday of every month. And if again, it's, as the double asterisk at the bottom notes, meeting dates are subject to change, but it's best if we can plan around something that's already set. My only request is that we actually look for an alternative to Wednesday, September 11th.
September 11th. Yeah.
We
Okay.
can do that.
Okay. And the reasoning behind that, by the way, is the significance of September 11th.
Good call.
Are we still staying with the virtual meeting next year?
We'll tackle that. It's something that Cassandra and I are trying to figure out, because the requirements at the moment, you might recall that our minutes are captured by a very capable resource that we have, but she reviews the recording of the meeting to capture those minutes. And she's not able to attend live. So we do have to have these meetings recorded, and that's not necessarily a problem in our structure. The problem is that the town only has, I think, 1 or 2 resources for doing that, and gaining regular access to that is fairly difficult. I would prefer to meet in person wherever we can. All right. Can we have a vote on the draft 2024 schedule?
By the schedule.
By roll call. Well, actually, you know what? Can I have a motion for it first?
Moved.
Second?
Second,
All right. By roll, Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Paul Grady,
I think he said I.
Paul,
like
you're
an aye.
on mute.
I'm sorry about that. Paul Grady, aye.
Thank you, Paul. Rob Jeffers,
Rob Jeffers, aye.
Ed Carr, Ted Froese.
Oh, did I?
There you go.
Am I back?
There you go.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Steve Gomer, aye. I don't think I missed anybody, did I?
Rob Henry.
Oh, Rob Henry. My apologies, Rob. Rob
Right.
Henry.
Rob Henry, aye.
Okay, great. So schedule's approved. Has everybody read the November 8th meeting minutes?
Sure.
Yes.
In that case, is there any questions on them? Any edits, changes, etc.? Hearing.
Just grateful for Christine.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
All right. Can we have a motion to move those minutes?
So moved.
Make a second.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Cindy. All right. Once again, seeing no further conversation, we'll go by roll. Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, aye.
All right. Ted Carr,
Ted Carr, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Jeffers,
Rob Jeffers, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye. Last but not least, Christine Barriford invoice. Worth every penny.
Oh, God, yes.
Oh my God, there's a lot of pennies in there. Okay, so again, has everybody reviewed this? In the event that you haven't, let me summarize it for the record. Christine Barriford has forwarded an invoice to us for minutes covering September, October, and November meetings. The total of the invoice is $325. All right. I don't think there's anything surprising there. So with that, if everybody's in approval, once again, let's entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, motion and a second. Thank you very much. Once again, by way of roll call, we'll start with Ted Carr,
Ted Carr, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Jeffers,
Rob Jeffers, aye.
Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, I.
Okay, Steve Gomer, aye. Great. Let's pay the lady. Thank you very much for her continued support of us.
Wonderful.
Last but not least, I want to thank you all for for a hell of a year's work. I've said this before, and I say it again publicly and for the record. I've never worked with a more functional group of people, and you all know that the jokes about committees, right? A committee is only as good as its weakest link, and it's beautiful to say, but I can't find them unless I'm looking at them. No, that's me, right.
No,
Oh, sorry. I had to stretch. Sorry about that.
except for Ted, we all kept our hands
How'd you
down.
get the kink out of your shoulder there, bud?
Okay.
I want to thank you all. You're a tremendous group of folks to work with. I know it hasn't been necessarily easy throughout this year. You've been generous with your time, and they're simply thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
I wish you all a very
Keeping us in direction.
I wish you all a very happy, relaxed holiday season. We'll see you collectively next week. But as our last regularly scheduled meeting, I just wanted to express that for the record.
Thank you.
Sentiments returned.
All right. With that,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you very much, Rob.
Uh-huh.
Paul Grady seconds. All right. One more time around the horn. Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, I.
Okay. Paul Grady.
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Jeffers.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Ted Carr.
Ted Carr and I and Rob Henry, I'll call you in a little bit. We're just dealing with a school matter at the moment too. So I'll call you in just a little bit. Yep. Thanks.
Okay.
Aye.
Rob Henry.
Rob Henry, aye.
And Steve Gomer, aye. Rob Jeffers, I will call you in probably about an hour. All right. Thanks, guys.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you, Cassandra.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Happy holidays.